Bwana asifiwe. Grateful to God to be back to this church. I think I told you last time when I got saved after preaching by an AICMilimaniNairobiKE in Japine AIC. Actually, I think the reason why I got saved is because nobody had taught him how to teach young people. He was actually preaching and doing an altar call in our school. These days, the Sunday school people don't preach, they teach, isn't it? That Mzee was preaching and made hell so real that I wondered whether I really want to go to hell. My question was, I was doing well in class. So I had to make up my mind, is hell real or not? Then I asked, but it's not the Mzee saying it's the Bible. Is the Bible true or not? And I realized I could not say Bible is not true. So if the Bible is true, and the Mzee is right, it means I'm going to hell. Now, going to hell is not a good thing. But going to hell knowingly is worse. And I'm claiming to be a clever boy because I was doing well in class. So that's what really brought me a conviction. So other people have better reasons, but for me, I was running away from hell. It's later now as a Christian, I learned that there are many, many benefits of knowing Christ. Many, many benefits of knowing Christ. Because when you know him, there's heaven, and that one we are happy to go. But more importantly, here on earth, the benefits. The other day, and I may have told you the story before, one of my friends whom I've been preaching to for many, many years, we worked together for around 30 years, and he didn't give his life to the Lord. We retired. He still hadn't given his life to the Lord. He told me, John, are you aware how lucky you are? I said, what do you mean by lucky? The way you married. So I said, Kwani, you people marry how? I thought you married the same way. You don't understand. You, I know you just met Rebecca, agreed to marry, and married her. So I thought you also did the same with Mama so-and-so. I will not tell you the name in case you know who I'm talking about. I thought that's a... It said, no, it's not the same. Non-Christian girls cannot be trusted. So you would have to be a fool to have only one girlfriend. Because you'll dump you and you'll be left for mata. So you always have more than one. There begins the problem. How you ensure this girl never discovers the other girl. I started to say, now I'm seeing your point. I never had a problem like that. And so you have to package your lies and in such a way that they can never discover each other. Because each has been told you are the only one. So I said, now I start seeing the benefit of knowing Christ when you are young. Say things are not even that. You know my wife, yes. The way she ended up to be my wife, she seems to have smelled a rat. That there could be somebody. So when she got pregnant, we had just left university. We are not married. It's a years after university. You are bachelors. He was just enjoying himself. Then the girl got pregnant. And one day she came there, of course they were sharing the house with other young men. She went to his bedroom and refused to come out. Says, are you not going home? Where? This is home. And that's why she's the wife up to now. But the story doesn't end up there. The other girl also got pregnant. And she came just to find the room is already occupied. She left, and according to him, they have never met again. But he is aware he is father of a girl, same age with, he's called Mama, that other girl, whom I know. Do you realize he was right? It's a very difficult thing to be an unchristian man. So if you think you have problems, imagine non-Christians. You come home because you are late at work. You tell your wife you are late at work. When you are a non-Christian, you are used to your husband's lies. So she tells you another one. You think I'm a fool? I know where you passed. Actually, genuinely, you came from work. But she can't believe. And you know, if you are to be honest, you agree with her that she has no right to believe you, given the number of lies you have told since you wedded. So the problem don't end up after the wedding. They continue even after that. And now when you are my age, we are over 70, and you are getting older, the problem are worse. Keep asking, if you died, how many children are going to claim your property? Name them now. So you are being insolent. No, just be frank. Where are they? Of course, you know they are there, but some of them, like my friend told me, you have no idea where they are. So they can appear after. So you cannot assure your wife they will not appear. That's why our topic today is man as a moral leader of his family. Because if you are not that, my friend, please know you are going to endure life, not enjoy it. And Christian men are meant to endure life, to enjoy life, not to endure it. And I thought the topic that our brother or the committee chose is a very, very important topic. In the sense that a leader, we can talk about being the provider, being all those other things. But the critical question is, are you the moral leader of your family or not? Could you say that you are that to your family? Man, the moral leader of the family. First of all, when you talk about morality, we are talking about three different things. To be the moral leader, we are talking about three different things. There are more, but I will emphasize three different things. Number one, to be the moral leader means to be the person who will never be accused of telling a lie. Integrity is part of morality. So if you are the moral leader, your wife will never say, swear. Is it true? Because she knows you never tell a lie. You're also not the type to say, my guy, now, truth of God. Now, when you swear, it means you have been telling lies, but today you are different. That people who tell the truth all the time never need to swear. So when you talk about you are the moral leader, it means integrity is part and parcel of you. And your children and your wife copy you because that's who you are. Unfortunately, can your children claim, like this father who kept telling the son, you work hard. If you work hard, I'll buy you a bicycle. Then the boy worked hard and became number one. But the man had no money. So he kept saying, Papa, did you see the results? I was number one in class. In order to silence the boy, he says, work harder. Now, he went to the mother and says, I'm not understanding my father. When you are number one and you work harder, you go to where? Because the man does not want to admit he cannot keep his word. Is that man moral? Do you think he's moral to his son? No, he now knows my father is just a talker. You can never believe him. So it's important to understand when you are talking about you becoming the moral leader, it means your children can never quote a time when you said something and you did not keep it. Let me be a little more soft. When you said something and when you are unable to keep it, you did not apologize. Because you are not God. Sometimes you can fail to keep your promise, not because it's within you, but in law they talk about the act of God. So there are things that can stop you. But since you accept accountability as a person of integrity, it means you say, I am responsible. I don't know how I can make it good for you, but I failed you. But especially African men, to admit that they are wrong, and of all people, not the wife, the child. Huyu atamweka atakuwa na kichwa gumu. You can't admit. By not admitting, do not assume your 10-year-old boy does not know the truth. He knows you are a liar. So you cannot claim to be the moral leader of your family. So if you want to be a moral leader, the cost is very, very high. Because it means you do not make a promise before you have thought through, and when you make a promise, you keep to it. Number 2, when we say you are the moral leader of your family, it means you do not have problems with infidelity. When we talk about infidelity, we are talking about not being faithful to your wife. And needs to be such that there is no time. It doesn't matter whether she comes in figure 8 with a dress too high, too low from above and too high from below. Now, it doesn't matter how she comes. As a man who is a moral leader, it doesn't move you. I saw something on WhatsApp where a guy came, an unchristian drunk man, arrived home. He was so drunk, he just fell in bed, and the wife had to remove the shoes because he fell in the shoe zone. And as he was so drunk and sleepy, he didn't know where he was. He kept saying, "Don't touch me. I have a wife at home and I believe in her. I am on her. Don't touch me." He's telling the real wife because he's not aware he is at home. When he woke up in the morning, he expected the wife to be very rough. But she made breakfast, omelette, whatever. He says, "I'm confused. I came home late, and you are not quarreling me. What's the problem?" That is so the story. In your drunkenness, you are still faithful to me. That's what it means to be the moral leader. That he cannot, we can condemn him for his drunkenness, but he must get some marks for making that he cannot be touched by any other woman. So if you are the moral leader, is that true of you? Since the wedding day, we can go earlier, but let's start with the wedding day. Because that's when you made a promise before God and before your mother. Now, of all people, your mother, she witnessed that you will never touch any other woman. Have you ever touched any other? So if you are the moral leader, it means nobody, no other woman, fat, narrow, tall, short, has ever been touched by you. I've changed my words. She can touch you, but you can't touch her. Because when she touches you, throw away the hand. So is there somebody like that? If you are the moral leader, it means you can say it has never happened. But Jesus made it harder for us to be moral leaders. He says, it is true you have never slept with another woman other than your wife. And many of us as Christians, that's very easy. Many, I didn't say all, many of us who are born again, that's not our major problem, sleeping with a woman. But there's something else called emotional infidelity. Emotional infidelity is you did not touch another woman, but because of your current strain between you and your wife, there's another woman you are talking to who seems to soothe you and seems to make you more relaxed. But you don't go beyond that. But that is called emotional infidelity. Because you are not supposed to get emotional support from women you are not married to. Run to God. Don't run to another. And the very fact that you have never slept with her, but you have been involved in emotional infidelity. The Word of God is saying, the Old Testament says, adultery is sleeping with somebody you are not married to. The New Testament says, no, it's not sleeping. It's just looking at a woman and desiring her. She's not even aware at all. She is not even aware at all. Jesus does not say you have been tempted. He says you have already committed. Am I quoting the Bible correctly? Am I quoting correctly? It's not that you have been tempted. You have already committed adultery. Hands up, adulterers. No, don't. But that's our subject today. That's our subject today. When you talk about moral leadership, it is that you have never allowed yourself to commit adultery through emotions or through your mind. What then that means, because the very, very high standard Jesus set, is that if you participate in pornography, and I know some Christians do that because I read it in a magazine, that some pastors were in a hotel in Canada. And those are the days when people do not have their phones. 1990s. But they could tell who went to which site. And the pornographic sites were more watched when the hotel was full of pastors than the rest of the time. Because for them, they don't want to be immoral, but they want to see. Now, what they are forgetting is that is moral immorality. Because Jesus is saying, even to look at that girl, half naked or fully naked, and you start feeling nice, and so the next one, that niceness is what is become immorality. You know, that niceness you are feeling by watching the picture is what is immorality. So when we talk about moral leadership, we are really saying that you manage that one also. And you set an example. Let me now go to a little harder one. Where you are actually married to a woman who is loose. When it is a man loose, the African culture makes it easier for us to be forgiven. Do you agree? But if you discover your wife is dealing with the boss in a certain way, there will be trouble in that home. Am I right? But the real problem is you feel it justifies you to also look around. After all, if you can do it, I can also do it. To be the moral leader of your family is to have a wife like that and you will not join her. After all, she has chosen to go to hell. Why should you two go there? Let her go alone. And that's what moral leadership is, when your wife will discover that despite her behavior, you are not following. Hopefully, according to Romans chapter 12, when you love someone who is not worth your love, the Bible says you are putting coals. Have you read that one? It's like you're putting coals, and the implication is it will finally burn the person. I don't know that will take 2 months or 2 years or 20 years. But the Bible promises us, if you continue loving such a loose woman, and you don't follow her behavior, you continue being a moral person, you will finally win her over. But there's no promise as to how long that will take. Are we together? That's what you're talking about, being a moral leader. Because the wife will have to admit, the problem is me. Of course, you start by saying, even you. It's a way of her defense. But in her heart, she knows that she has no evidence. And she has no basis for the accusation, because you are leading a very moral life, both inwardly and outwardly. In fact, your standard is not your wife catching you. It's Christ. You know, for about 6 or 7 years, I used to work for Shell, and I was in the regional office. That means I was covering 10 countries. And most of the time I spent in hotels. I'm in Madagascar, Houston, Madagascar. There are no Kenyans there. So what I do cannot even be reported back to Rebecca. There's no possibility. The truth is, There are people in those hotels, isn't it? I still remember being in Ethiopia in a Hilton, Addis Ababa, and they have a swimming pool which is on hot, because they stand on hot water like Bogoria. So the water in the swimming pool is actually warm or hot. And I came out, sat, I wanted to take a cup of tea. Then a lady moved from her seat and came next. And I knew the trouble is coming. The next time she was next. And you know the only alternative is to go upstairs. Now, you need to, although you wanted to enjoy the sun, you enjoy the sun at your own risk. So those things are real. It's not academic. I keep saying some people are very moral because they have no opportunity. We keep blaming long-distance drivers for immorality, isn't it? What we don't know is that some of us are equally immoral minus opportunity. If you are the one doing a job where for 2 weeks your wife can never discover, you would know who you are. But now you married Mama Kali. And if she ever discovers the amount of trouble, so you dare not. But you actually, the Bible is describing as immoral minus opportunity. To be a moral leader means even if there's opportunity, you not do it. That's really what we are talking about. Thirdly, if we are talking about being a moral leader, it means living within your means. Materialism does not affect you. You are happy to drive a small car, which you can afford, and you're not tempted to drive a bigger car, which your classmate at the university is driving. Because for you, you are grateful to God's gifts. That's what he's saying. I've written a book called The Secrets of Contentment. And you have learned, because Paul says, I have learned whatever position to be contented. So you do not suffer, because a lot of us do not have a problem with telling lies. We don't have a problem with immorality, sexual immorality. We have a problem with the way we manage our money. And you are in the process creating an atmosphere that will get your children into trouble. Because they have learned. You never say, I have no money. Never. So they also learn, yeah, you must have money. Now, the only way you do that is by Fuliza, isn't it? And other things. That's why you always provide for your children whenever, whatever they want, you give. Goes for Fuliza. But Fuliza will also Fuliza, isn't it? And there will be trouble. A moral person is able to share with his family when he has no money. And say, for now, we cannot go to Mombasa. If we went there, there will be no school fees in January. That happens to be the truth. Then the children feel, my father is so poor. In fact, the other day, our children are adults. The last one is around 40 years, the last born. So, but at the time we were talking with them, and they said, Papa, I used to think you were poor. I said, why? Because, like when they're in high school, I'll not give them money unless they write their budget. Say, but the families just give 2,000. Mommy, I say, I'll give even 3, but write a budget. On the basis of the budget, the funding will give on the basis of the budget. So you write a budget, money for madazis, and there are that madazis. So I say, will you eat supper? Now, that's what they didn't like. That we go through the budget, whatever figure is agreed, I'll give them the money. So they formed an opinion, I must be very poor. Now as adults, they realize. I say, no, that's what I was trying to understand, for you to learn. The spirit of entitlement is given by a man who is not moral in terms of financial management. You create the impression to your wife, she can always get whatever she wants. You create in your children that you can. Now they are married themselves and they are in chaos because they did not understand money doesn't grow on trees. And now you are not involved, but some of you are still involved Because every time they run out of money, Papa, I've run out. Give me 10,000. If you give, you are continuing the problem which you started when they were 5 years. Am I right? Because you see, you did not teach them about financial management that allows you to survive and be happy at any level of income. I can go on, but those are 3 areas. We are talking about moral, being the moral leader. These are 3 areas that you need to show. Let me remind you what we said during the men's conference. A man is a prophet, is a priest, and is a king. So as a man, we must think like a prophet. That means we think ahead, not just currently. Number 2, we must serve our family like a priest. That means you are the one who is helping the family to know God and telling the family what God is saying. And you are praying for the family. And finally, you must plan like a king. That means you are organized. And I think that will be something very, very important. So, we are discussing how and why should men honor marriage, despite all the changes of the 21st century. Because really, you cannot be described as a moral leader if you don't obey Hebrews. The marriage bed must be honored. Then, so you in the process, you are an example, and I've talked about that in my introduction, of fidelity. That's a moral leader. Number 2, you're an example in respect. You treat people with respect. They may be small children, but don't treat them anyhow. After all, you are my son. I can do with you whatever I want. No, you teach them from early that human beings are valuable. Then you are the moral leader, because you are giving your children value for human beings. You know, when the Bible talks about thou shalt not murder, it actually gives the reasoning behind it. It is because you are the image of God. You cannot kill because man is created in God's image. So in the same way, your children must grow respecting that boy in the class who is disabled because he is created in God's image. Respecting that girl who is permanently number 1 in class from the back. But your son, who is always number 1 from the front, never treats her with disrespect because you have taught him morality. Are we together? And that will only happen if that's the way you are living. Remember we said last time, habits are caught, not taught. You don't teach, you act, then people follow. Whatever you say, if you're not acting according to it, it will not happen. So, respect. And then you teach them commitment. In other words, the reason why you are still with your wife is not because she doesn't make ugali that tastes like soil, but because you are committed to marriage. Then you are a moral man. If your wife thinks you love her because, and the because is not commitment, it's because she dresses well, that she knows one of these days when she does not dress well, you no longer love her. Commitment is something that says, I'm committed to you, whether you dress well or dress badly. Whether you embarrass me in public or you don't. Of course, that doesn't mean you'll be very happy when she embarrasses you before your mother. But you are still committed to her. In other words, your wife needs to know there is absolutely nothing she can do to get rid of you. You are in this marriage or keeps. But some of you say, no, atakuwa na kichwa gumu. Now, I agree, that's her problem. And God will handle her, isn't it? He says, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. But when you talk about being the moral leader, you are teaching commitment. You are committed to your son. Even if he is the one I was talking about earlier, number 1 from the back, permanently. Never seems to improve. But he must sense the Father loves him. So that he knows, I'm not loved for my marks. I'm loved because I'm loved. Have you ever wondered why God said about his son, Jesus, before he ever preached. He comes out of the water, he has never been baptized before he starts preaching. Then the Father says, "This is my beloved son, hear him." Had he earned the right? No. Later, of course, he did many things. But God said, "I love you," before he ever did anything. And since you are a father in God's image, it means your children must sense, and we talked about this last time, unconditional love, where they commit themselves to something, they will do it. That's what we are talking about when we are saying you are the moral leader of your home. You know, fathers help family get a biblical worldview. That's your major. When you talk about you are the moral leader, it means you are the one who helps the family to get a worldview that gives the Christian morality. Worldview, what is worldview? Worldview are the glasses our upbringing gives us to interpret what's right or wrong. That's why a Muslim child who has been given the morality that the life that matters is the life of Muslims, not the life of kafir, will actually kill without any qualms. He also set himself on fire without any qualms. Why? Because that's the moral view, the world view that he has. Your responsibility as a Christian man is to ensure your child has a biblical worldview. And I think that's a very important thing. I'll spend a bit more time on that, because that's really the crux of the matter. If you are going to be the moral leader, it means you are the one setting direction for your family. Let me give a quotation by John Luther. Good character is more to be praised than outstanding talent. Most talents are to some extent a gift. Good character, by contrast, is not given to us. We have to build it piece by piece by thought, choice, courage, and determination. So that's why we are talking about morality is a virtue as part of the character. We talk about someone being of good character because he is moral. And John Luther is actually saying it's not a gift. It is something you have to work on. And by the time we say you have good character, it will be because you have been on the job for a long, long time. You know, I keep telling people, it's very interesting that when we talk about people who are good, you know, that's such a man of God, we normally use gifts. If somebody is very gifted as a speaker, we call him a good Christian. Am I right? But you know, gifts tells you nothing about the man. It tells you about the giver. And the Bible tells us it's God who chooses what gift to give you, isn't it? So, gifts cannot be used to assess whether you are a moral person. It is the fruit of the Spirit. Not the gift of the Spirit, but the fruit. Because the fruit means the Holy Spirit is working through you to produce a difference. So if you want to say somebody is a Christian, a mature person, it will not be seen by his gifts, the way he serves the Lord. It will be seen by his character, the fruit of the Spirit. And you know the fruit, the 9 aspects of the fruit. For the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace. All of them must be seen in you. And when they are not seen in you, then you cannot talk about being a moral leader. That's what we are talking about. Unfortunately, I say this, but next time, again, you see somebody doing miracles. Say, what a powerful man of God. But that guy may be an immature Christian. Because you see, the gift is not given according to our deserving. The Holy Spirit gives to whoever, whenever. Am I right? Is that the Bible? Yeah. So it doesn't tell you anything. So you need to understand. Don't allow the gift, the way you serve God in the church or elsewhere, to start cheating you are spiritually mature. What tells you are spiritually mature is your character and how you are living your life, both internally and outside. That's something that we have to think about. So, but for that to happen, because I have to go towards finishing as quickly as possible. For that to happen, it will be important that you have inside you, in order to build the biblical worldview, values. What's a value? When you are preparing strategies for organizations, we ask them, what are your core values? A core value is a non-negotiable conviction. Non-negotiable conviction. In other words, I live by it. I'm willing to be called a failure rather than break my core values. So if you really want to be a moral leader, you must have core values, biblical core values, which you are not willing to break. You'd rather be a failure rather than break those values. That's why? Because values are the ones that will determine what's right and wrong. Will call something wrong on the basis of your values, whether it contradicts your values or not. And I think that's very important. Once you are clear on your values, then the next thing is you are required to pass those values to your family. And fathers are biblical examples of mentors. Isn't that what 2 Timothy 2:2 is saying? And the things you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to reliable men who will also be qualified to teach others. In other words, whatever values God has given you, you must look at your children and your spouse as reliable people whom you will share with, so that they also can share with others along the way. But let me spend a bit of time just talking about worldview. Worldview is how you look at the world, how you interpret the world, how you think the world operates. And worldview gives you the answer as to why things happen the way they do. And it also helps you to see what your purpose in life is. For example, a worldview of atheism, which is a belief that God does not exist, explains the creation of the universe and of life as randomness, acting over a very long time. Worldview is the philosophy that creates our very culture. So when we talk about a biblical worldview, it means you believe God is the creator, and you believe God is a spirit, and he can be with you anywhere and everywhere. So it no longer worries you what does my wife think. Your worldview tells you that God is with you wherever it is. And so it will give you ideas, morals, faith, and view of how the world does and should operate. Because God is the one who influences everything else. What surprised me was to read that the worldview of a young person is already fully formed up by the age of 13. And and it starts from 18 months to 13. That means by the time somebody is a teenager, they have already made up their mind what's right and wrong. That's why it's a very unfortunate thing when you hear people are taking their children to boarding in primary, like happened in Nyeri. You remember, you know what I'm talking about. Because the worldview is not made up by that time. That means the child will be influenced by the other child, and he cannot say there is anything wrong. If the other child can do it, I can also do it. By the time they are teenagers, your son can be in the same class as another son, and you say, no. Where I come from, we don't do things like that. You can't do that before you're a teenager. Studies show. So it's important to understand that although we are talking about worldview, passing worldview to your children, you do it all the time. Mine, you hear are adults. I still try to influence them, but the word is try. There was a time when whatever I said was like a sponge. They just took it in. That's before the worldview is made. Whatever the father says must be right. When they become teenagers, they also Google. So they know the father said this, Dr. Google said this, and they have a choice to make. So even if you're available when your children are teenagers, whatever your influence is checked. So if you are not available to your children before they are 13, you lost a very major requirement. Fortunately, I can see some of the fathers here are younger. Please, even if it might mean resigning your job to look for a job that allows you to be the children, after all, it's just a short time. Most of us are likely to work from the age of 25 to the age of 60. Those are how many years, Chairman? Who is the mathematician? Those are how many? 45. Yeah, 35. Is it? Yeah. So, and you realize if you are married around the same time, it just means by the age of 45, your children are teenagers. Am I right? Or before you are 50. You still have another 10 years to work, isn't it? So, you need to find a way. If you are the moral leader of your family, and now we have moved to where we are talking about you influencing, passing that value to somebody else. You might have to look at your business or your career in order to, because of this issue. According to American researcher George Banner, in a recent interview, by the time a teenager gets 13 or 14, anything you tell them must be checked against his already made up worldview. He says it may be refined a bit through the teen years, that's Dr. Banner, but by the 20s, not only is the worldview solid, but most people become evangelists for their view. In other words, women are useless. Now, they learned that for the first 13 years, because the father treated the mother like useless. It entered their mind. They were never told women are useless, but they saw the way the mother was treated. In teenage, they can still get an opposite influence. By their 20s, they talk like a Kalenjin man. You listen to your son and you wonder, hiya, did he pass through my hands? Because now he's the evangelist for the values you gave him. And he can defend. In debate with other young men, he said, no, women are useless. Their place is in the kitchen. He's an evangelist. But all the evangelism was done to him. Now he has taken over to be the evangelist. Am I communicating? So if you are going to be the moral leader of your family, it just means you have to find a way of dealing with them that early stage. So, what you do with your child before teenage determines the rest of his life. Let me ask the next question. Who is shaping this worldview? If you only have 13 years to form the next generation, it's imperative that we know how it happens. Dr. Banner says there are 3 dominant influencers in making the worldview. Number 1, the parents. And the most important, it's parents. They are the primary shapers of the worldview. Especially if your child is in a day school. Moms and dads clearly have the most powerful when it comes to shaping our children's ideas, morals, faith, views. The best gifts we can give to our kids is to help them to think biblically. But this will not happen by chance. You need to ask yourself, what is it you are doing that is helping your child to have a biblical worldview? Some of you think the church in Sunday school is one to do it. A friend of mine, because of the kind of, in our days, we went to school in the 60s, and I went to high school, late 1960s. Most schools were missionary schools. So we knew the value of Christianity, even non-Christians. So he told his wife, my children must go through Sunday school. One day he was upstairs, because he was doing on Saturday night, so he could not go to church himself. When the children came from Sunday school, he was upstairs, and the children were playing with other boys below. He heard his son saying, when I grow up, I will also not be going to church like my father. Because you see, habits are caught, not taught. So it's not, you cannot hand over biblical worldview to the Sunday school. Because the child values you more than the Sunday school teacher. Are we together? So the Sunday school teacher can continue doing mouth exercise. My father is the right one. And whatever the Sunday school teacher is teaching, the worldview that is being formed by the father, not by what he is saying, but what he is doing, it will be very difficult to overrun it. And it's important to understand that and ask yourself, do you take it as your responsibility, or are you starting to think that the Sunday school will do it? So let's admit you have the opportunity. The only question is whether you'll do it. The second dominant influencer when it comes to shaping worldview is the media. Dr. Banner says that kids are exposed to an average, in America that is, of 16,000 hours of media by the time they graduate from high school. That's almost 2 years if you count it. And that's where the family comes in. How are you managing the media, especially for your 2-year-old? You know, I've discovered many of the young fathers are not suffering the way we suffered. You know, your wife is cooking, you are jumping around with the baby. Now you just hand over your what is it called? Smartphone, isn't it? And it has pictures, so your child starts watching pictures in the age of 2 years. What you don't know is those cartoons are teaching worldview. Some of them are even teaching witchcraft. So you start seeing that somebody do something and a miracle happens, and they're 2 years. He's not old enough to know they are not real, isn't it? So he grows believing in witchcraft. And he was taught that by the father who is a pastor. Now you need to ask, you need to start understanding what we are talking about. Media. Dr. Banner is saying the worldview that they're forming in your child, you may be doing your part as a father, but what are you allowing? Do you have a way of ensuring that before your child can watch a cartoon, you yourself have watched it? They are boring. But if you really love your child, you must watch the cartoon first before you allow your child to watch. Anyway, we had an easier time in the 80s when our children were growing up, because there was only one station called VOK TV. But we also agreed with my family, my children, when they were in primary school, we agreed there will be no watching of TV from Monday right up to Thursday. When it comes to weekend, we'd watch TV, which was a punishment on me. Because I could not, you can't tell, you cannot say it's bad to watch and you yourself are watching. Fortunately for me, when they go to sleep, I can go back and turn the thing on. And there was something called 11 o'clock news. You remember? There was something that could come late, you know, some news, because I like news. But the point is, that's what they did. Then on Monday, on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we agreed you could not see more than 2 programs in a day. And because there are the 3 of them, they have to negotiate. You see, you can say, no, and the other one is watching, but it's not me who chose. They must meet. I brought the newspaper, and they used to have a program of TV programs, and then they debate until they agree which are the 2 programs. Then as they got older, the videos started coming. Video library came. And therefore, I would say, instead of a program, let me bring you a video. What are those things called? Video tapes. You remember? But we struggled, isn't it? Don't think you are the only one who struggled. We struggled. Because if you really want a biblical worldview, you must manage the media. That's how you become a moral leader. You may be moral yourself, but are you swapping the morality to your family? And media management will be one of the things that you'll have to spend time asking yourself whether you are really succeeding in that area. I have to find a way of finishing. The final dominant factor in shaping worldview is the law of the land. That's why some of us need to be MPs. The other day they passed a law. They passed a law that you can have many wives. Did you hear it? Who is the lawyer here? And I wondered, with all the Christians you have in the parliament, the women tried to oppose it to overrun. You remember? Now today, you have a choice of a Christian marriage or a traditional, and you can get a marriage certificate in both. Those who know law. Am I right that far? Now that thing starts making it, of course my friend knows these things. The fact that they open the opportunity puts temptation on your children. The law of the land is starting to form the worldview. Because what we thought, hey, polygamy, how terrible. Once they realize Parliament has passed it, it starts creating in the worldview of your child. My father may think it's bad, but it's not really that bad. How come they passed the law on it? And I think that's something that you have to ask yourself. And anyway, we have to finish. So, what you're saying is, remember, you as a father, you must create the foundation center for the worldview of your children. And I wanted to read Joshua 4:6. You can read on your own. Nehemiah 13:24. Ephesians 6:1. Let me read Ephesians. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Why are they obeying you? It's because it is so that you can help them form their worldview. By the way, you can see the prefix is children. Adult sons and daughters are not taught to obey you. And they are instead of being told to obey, they are told to honor. And it's important that you understand that. So as I finish, my suggestion for you to form that morality which you pass on to others is you must recommit yourself to a personal quiet time. When I call it personal, it means it's not praying with your wife or with your children. You as a man must meet God daily on your own. Because it's that meeting with God that will shape your values. Then you must also allocate time for what you call couple quiet time. Not a family altar. You and your wife need to find a time when you can pray. Because the family altar is always run at the level of the youngest child. Am I right? Because you can't, if you talk too high, how will the child understand? So you and your wife need to deal with the meat of the word. The things the Bible is saying, how can we actually implement it? So you need a couple time. Even if you can't manage daily, at least create a number of evenings or mornings when your wife can have quiet time with you. Then finally, you have family quiet time so the children can be actually included in. It is that process, number one, your personal quiet time, that will create your values. And as you meet with your wife, you can influence her. And as you meet with your children, you will be able to influence them. But I'm also suggesting that you should belong to a regular Bible study group where there are other men and other women who can start shaping your values. Because there's something you believe, but somebody else in the Bible study challenges it. If your wife challenges it, you silence her. But this is somebody else to respect and is challenging your ideas. It's actually wherever I go myself, all the years since I left campus, if there is no Bible study group, I create one. You really are the poorer if you don't have a group of people that regularly every week sit together to study God's word. Because it is that discussion that starts shaping your moral values, even as you try to pass it on to others. You please belong to a group that studies the Bible. Of course, you can have a church zero group, but most of the time people may be backbiting. Now, we are talking about Bible study. Am I communicating? Bible study. Studying the Word of God together with others. And next, please belong to a Christian couples group. And I know this church has something like that, isn't it? Where a few couples regularly meet together to influence each other. And then finally, I suggest you get involved in a ministry. Because when you are thinking about how to minister to others, it has to be fully understood. In fact, they say one of the best ways of learning anything is to try to teach it. Since you don't want to embarrass yourself, you study it hard. Am I right? So when you get to be involved in ministry, whether we are talking about Sunday school teaching, whatever ministry we are talking about, it forces you into checking what you believe, and it's likely to help you. Now, I want to allow question time. So, if there's another mic, it can be passed on. I have not covered all my notes, but they will be sent to you, and you can follow me up on the thing. the things I've written, which I have not actually covered. But I wanted to, in the notes, as you prepare your question, I wanted you to remember that you are supposed to reflect the image of God. That's how that realization that anything I do and say, I'm representing God, will actually help you. And number two, that if you truly want to be a moral leader, you are not allowed to think like a child. So you cannot of your own start behaving like a toddler. You know, some men are like toddlers. The food has been burnt, and for the next 3 weeks, you can't talk to your wife. That's called behaving like a child. Now, we are learning, you must think like a man. And I wanted to also spend a bit of time talking about being self-controlled, being a role model, and guarding the morality of the family by setting a good example. And I also wanted to talk about the whole thing about discipline in the family. And I could go on. I'm waiting for the question. Man is the moral leader of his family. I started by defining what we are talking about. Then I talked about how you can develop your moral values, and I talked about how you can pass it on to others.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to, if you could speak, sir, to the continuous pressure and the undermining of the authority of men, both in all spaces, really. And this, we call the feminization of men. I don't know if you're getting my, and you can see it. I can quote several programs to. I'd love.
I understand you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Yeah, that is true. That our parents had an easier time influencing us than we have influencing our children. And you, who are in your 40s, have had a time than we had. Are you getting what Kimosop is saying? Yeah, if your wife already lets the children know, your father, ignore it. You know he never talks sense. Now, and that's your wife telling your son. It will easily eat away from your influence on the child, isn't it? So, your wife needs counseling. That's the first solution to the issue. Because the word of God is clear, man is the leader of his home, isn't it? So, and the way to undermine that leadership is to talk. There are things you may be doing wrong, but she should not correct you in the presence of the children, if she really loves her children. Because by removing you from that leadership authority, she will be on her own, isn't it? And it's not good for her own children. So I do agree. And unfortunately, it's the same thing in the industry. You know, they say that women should be given a third of all appointed, are they called appointed posts? And that's what the Constitution says. Then you have in our judiciary 3 women, and nobody is complaining. The Chief Justice, the Deputy, the Attorney General, and there's no man there. So that's 100%. And they were supposed to get that. Now, you need to understand what it's slowly doing in our children is to start showing them, if you want leadership, don't look at the man. Look at women. It was not intended like that. But remember, your child is growing, isn't it? And when she sees the headmistress is a woman, the class teacher is a woman, Sunday school is a woman, and the pastor is a woman. Now, within no time, they start, and I think that's what Kimosop is saying. So my suggestions are 3. Number 1, during the Bible study, you must cover the topic of leadership with your children and with your family, and why man is the leader. Let it be something that's not being said underneath. Let it come out. It should also be discussed in your group Bible study so that there are wider people. Because the way to deal with the onslaught outside is to have something within that can fight it. Am I communicating? So you need, the first thing is, let the Bible be the leader. And, my second point, you must let the people, your children and your wife know that you are not led by culture. You are counter-culture. What is accepted in the village or in the town is not what guides you. The Bible is your guide. And that needs to be known very well. In other words, but that's what they are doing. Yeah, there. Here, we do it differently. And it's important that that is understood, that is communicated, so that the children, as they grow, they know there is something wrong with the things that are happening. Like now in Kikuyu land, when they start saying you must give a goat, and you don't tell your son anything, he'll also give a goat. After all, he wants to be a man, isn't it? Now, because there are people teaching them that if you have not given a goat, the blood has not been shed, you are not a man yet, you are still a kehe. Now, once your child does not want to be a kehe, an uncircumcised boy, you will see him start imbibing that philosophy, isn't it? So you need to study it, and then you need to say, I agree, we are behaving different, but to be a Christian means to choose to be counterculture. And I think that's very important. Thirdly and importantly, is at an early age, influence who your children's friends are. Because to say you don't care can be a problem. You must help them to know how to choose friends and why they cannot have friends who are going the negative way, except if they are evangelizing them. And that needs to be dealt with, because you want to pull this way, but the world is pulling a different direction. I think it's important to help your children to see that their friends can have influence, and they therefore need to be careful how they handle it. But even after saying all that, it's still a problem. But those are three things that one could try. Or did you want to add something? Because you have thought you may have thought about it more than me. Okay then. Okay. Yeah, okay, give the mic there.
Thank you, Elder, and good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, I have two questions, two in one. We are a generation of young ladies by choice who are raising their own sons. And they speak ill of men. They wish themselves happy Father's Day during the Father's Day. And that is a generation now, deliberately. I know there are some who are single mothers, but not by choice. But deliberately, they are single mothers. What they needed was a seed from that man and nothing to do with him again. And they'll raise their sons. And what is important is provision. Now, as a society, as a church, you know and I know that we'll have a problem 15 to 20 years from now, because the society will be led by men who were raised somehow without a man, and yet many times it takes a man to raise a man. Now, how should the society, and especially the church, and us as a society, go about it correcting that misnomer in the society? Number two, during the Bible study, you might read that the Bible says we respect those in authority. And you are with our children, and they are big enough to see political leaders lying and giving empty promises. How are you going to balance between saying they are liars and that you should also respect them, because you've told us, point 3, that the government and the laws, they shape also the worldview? Thank you.
The last one is easier, so I'll start with the easier one. You know, you are watching the TV with your children, isn't it? You must let them know that democracy does not choose the best leader. Never promised. Democracy chooses the most popular. You seem to look at me as if you didn't know. It has no promise at all. Democracy never promised to produce good leaders. Democracy produces the most popular. And if people are crooks, who is popular among them? Another crook. So you need to let your children know that. And that although you vote the least of the evils. Am I communicating? So that needs to be said. But tell them, once the person is elected, the Bible requires us to respect them. Am I communicating? In other words, and I think that's what has gone wrong. People think that the king needs to earn the right to be respected. That's not in the Bible. The father needs to earn the right. Another big debate in a group where Kimosop and I are in. And I try to talk and people, no. Fathers. In other words, the Gen Z becoming respectful to parents. The parents were saying, well done, continue. Fathers have no respect, no need of respect. I said, which Bible do they read? It does not say honor your father if he is good. All he requires to be honored is he is the owner of the seed. Am I communicating? That's the Bible. If you teach it in your family will have no difficulty with lying politicians. Because they already prepared them to understand. If there are many liars, they will pick one of them. And it goes by majority. Am I communicating? So if that is understood, then your children will grow knowing that we need to look for good leaders, and they themselves can offer themselves for leadership. But generally speaking, the good leaders require a miracle to be elected. Am I right? But God does. I keep reminding people that Jimmy Carter, a Christian Sunday school teacher, finally became president in America. How did he become a president? By the trouble that Watergate produced. Americans were so fed up with lying presidents, when a Sunday school teacher came, said, we want you. But in 4 years, they were so unhappy with him, they never gave him a second term. Because he was not only a Christian before, he became a Christian in his presidency. In the process, even after he retired and was not re-elected, up to now, Carter has influence. So you need to let them understand that. Let me come to the bigger, harder question. Single mothers are mothering sons. And they do not want the real father, the owner of the seed, to have any business. Because they were being used like a bull. And once the bull has done its work, it's not required anymore. And then the way things are worse now, that if you refuse with your seed, you'll go to Nairobi hospital to the sperm bank. Have you heard of it? Yeah, so it's a problem that's getting worse. 3 suggestions, and they're only suggestions. Number 1, the church must teach that we must love the sinner but hate the sin. We must be careful that in our desire to affirm single mothers, we do not make the girls think it's a good direction to go. You know that's what the church is doing? Because single mothers, the other day I was called for a conference of single mothers. There were many. And it was also online. It's a big thing now. So a lot of pastors are afraid of being misunderstood. So in the process, the single mothers are accepted. They are the ones leading they are doing ministry in every direction until people grow believing single mother is one of the many choices one can make. But that will have to change the Bible. Does the Bible talk about that? No. In fact, the Bible is so serious about that matter that even if you're a man and you're having trouble in your marriage, you are not allowed to be an elder. Is that in the Bible? So how come a woman who has dumped her husband is now being asked to become the leader in the church? Because the issue was simply that they're having difficulty in the way they are running their place. This one has difficulty, has even kicked away the husband. Now, how come we have no problem? So to me, it's a sensitive matter. Fortunately, I'm not a pastor, so I can say it. But the pastors have to handle it. They must create a balance where the single mother must be shown love. Because if she has repented, she's going to heaven, isn't it? And that must be assured that if she has repented, she is going to heaven just like anybody else. There's nothing, the scriptures do not talk of an unforgivable sin in the fact that she got children out of wedlock. So we must show her love. But we must also tell her, because of our understanding in the Bible, she is busy enough bringing up her children. Let's not allow her to have greater influence that can mislead. And I know I'm stepping on some toes. But it's a serious matter because, and that's what our friend is asking, how will you deal with it? When the people growing in a generation, think is okay. My second suggestion is, and I think I'm likely to have suggested it last time I came, is that we must find a way of the men's group mentoring single mothers' sons. And chairman is a tough job because it's dangerous, but important. The moment you take the single mother's son and you are talking her regularly, she thinks you are also interested in her. Now, can you see the trouble? You wanted the son, but you are getting double. Now, so how you mentor the son without getting involved with the mother is possible but difficult. Am I right? But you cannot give up. Obviously, the first problem will be your wife. You are with the son. Does the mother know? What are you... what is going on between you and the mother of the son? So your marriage is in trouble, isn't it? So I am agreeing. I'm agreeing there is trouble. But I don't think the church can allow boys to grow to adulthood without a father figure in their lives and be held innocent. It is the responsibility of the church, after we have said there is a problem at home, to find a way of dealing with it. And the chairman seated on my left is a culprit. They have to find a way of the men's fellowship, finding a way of dealing with the children of single mothers. It's called mentoring, discipling. The word mentor and disciple is the same word. We have to find a way of doing it. Some, they'll refuse. Because they've already been taught by their mother, men are useless. So who are you? Another useless man. Now, so you may have difficulty, but you must fail trying. And I think it will be very, very important to do that. Of course, the most important is for you who is seated here, and your sister is a single mother. Surely your wife will understand when you look at your nephews, isn't it? It's not likely to create a lot of difficulties when it is your own sister's sons. How much are you investing in your nephews? And you think, oh, there's a problem in single parenting. What are you doing yourself as a Christian man about the children of your single mother sister? Can you see it's doable? But we need to think about it. We need to be creative about it. We need to pray about it. We need to seek God's guidance about it. It is number 3, which will be something that is important. We need to influence the Ministry of Education, because you see now they are the ones teaching primary school children the various types of homes. Have you seen those things? And CBC, and they are making it look like a home with a single mother is the same as a home with a father and a mother. Both are choices. That the school system, the government system, can be producing a problem. And maybe we need to participate in the writing of the curriculum, in the writing of the books that are being used to help our children. But most important is to teach children in Sunday school about the value for marriage and sexual immorality and its problems. Because many of those single mothers did not necessarily choose to be single mothers. Some may have. But they slept with a man. The man did not want to marry them. They now are parents, isn't it? So if only they had learned the dangers of fornication, they could not have become single mothers, isn't it? So it's important to understand that. And we need to start in Sunday school, helping the child to value sexual purity right in Sunday school, so that they understand that they are supposed to be virgins as boys and virgins as girls until the wedding day. If you are able to do that, we'll reduce. The first 2 are dealing with a problem already existing. The last one is how to prevent it getting worse. Have I answered your question, brother? Okay. I think we are done in terms of time. Sorry?
We will only take one question because of time.
Sorry, there's somebody else you want to give?
Yes, only one person.
Okay.
Yes.
There are many offerings, so you make a choice.
So I think I'll go to the back.
This is your choice?
Yes.
You have the power of the mic.
Hi. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, brother.
Mine is just a slight question. considering you said let's start from marriage and not go back before that. So mine is just, you quoted Romans in terms of saying that a man is supposed to work morally, yes. But now even if your wife is working, you're supposed to stay clearly and do as you're supposed to do as a moral man. But I put that text in terms of a guy who's, all the young men who are here who are aspiring to be good husbands like their fathers are. What's the word from that Romans to them? Because now someone may take it differently and say, yeah, now, okay, I can wait and probably you'd hit a brick wall. So, enlighten.
Thank you, but you know I've just covered it. Remember, my third answer was how to teach young people not to be sexually active until the wedding. Did I say something like that? That's the answer to your question. That although I was emphasizing sexual purity in marriage, we need to teach Sunday school children, I said, that the sexual purity is a biblical requirement. Number one. Number two, it has benefits later in life. If a boy stays as a virgin until the wedding, in marriage, it's much easier to remain faithful to the wife than a boy who slept with many village girls. Now he is supposed to keep with one, but you know, practice makes perfect. He practiced the wrong thing. Now in marriage, it will be harder to keep to it. And that needs to be taught clearly, that we are, purity is not after the wedding. It needs to start earlier. And if it doesn't start earlier, they will have challenges in marriage itself. I hope I've understood your question. Okay.
He still needs to understand more.
Thank you. But now, I get it. Thank you for that. But to them, I'm talking of, to them that are dating, you talk of a man has married a woman and the woman is walking outside and you're supposed to stay and guide yourself until the woman changes, as you quoted Romans. But
For those who are already married.
Yes, to those are actually married. But now, to them that are dating, what are you telling
that's
them?
That's an easy one, brother,
yes.
surely. If the Bible does not allow a Christian boy to marry an unchristian, what more evidence do you require that she is going to hell? Now, so, and you know, as soon as you marry her, her father becomes your father-in-law, the devil. So it's very important to understand that if I understood your question, if your girlfriend is immoral, don't dump her tomorrow. Dump her today. Because and the issue will not be immorality. It is that she doesn't fear the Lord. And the Bible says light and darkness cannot have fellowship. We are not allowed as Christian men to marry non-Christians. 1 Corinthians 7:39 is saying you are free to marry, but whoever you marry must belong to the Lord. 1 Corinthians 7:39. So I think that's there may be more questions, but I think so that we don't delay people, we stop there. Is that okay? Mic man, you have the mic, but we stop there?
I think we needed to stop, but if I'm not biased, I'll give an opportunity for a burning question. And this one, then we stop.
And you can see the fire.
Good evening,
no, we
everyone.
don't want him to burn.
Good
Yes.
evening, everyone.
Yeah.
Mine is very simple. The content is very strong, and would appreciate if you could be having a channel so that we can follow for more details. Yeah.
If you could appreciate if I give you what?
A
The
channel.
notes.
Do you have a channel we can follow?
Oh,
Or-
okay, okay. Yes, you can take my YouTube account. Those talks, you'll find them in my YouTube accounts. But more importantly, if you want a personal discussion, I'll give you my telephone number. Is that okay? So go to YouTube, you saw it, John N. Nganga, and you'll find I have talks on sexual purity and man. I have several of them. Number two, I have written a book called The Christian Man. Some of the talks I gave last time, I actually included in the book. They are now in the book, The Christian Man. And you can find my books either from Focus or KSF or Scripture Union. Any one of them can give you. Number three, if I need something to be, this note will be sent to everybody, I think. Chairman, is that true? Yeah, then if you want to discuss something further, I want to give you my telephone number if you are ready to write. 0743 034 157. I repeat, 0743 034 157. Because some of things may be confidential. You want us to discuss. I'm a retired guy. I will be available. So just call and we can continue. We can discuss it further. Now, what we are discussing is a very important thing because, anyway, I'll be going on beyond the time, so I better stop there. But it's a very important thing because once men are immoral, the women follow suit, and the family is destroyed, and society is destroyed. So you can see how important it is for men to commit themselves and understand that there is nothing your wife can do that will excuse your immorality. Oh, you know she's going to hell, allow her to go to hell alone. You remain just. Like I argue in my book, when you read the book, you see I say, sex is not oxygen. With oxygen, if you don't breathe in 4 minutes, there will be brain damage. Sex, you can stay for the next 10 years. After all, they are Catholic fathers. Am I communicating? So you have no excuse that because my wife is not available in bed, so that allows you to go to a woman. No. Sex is not oxygen. Keep reminding yourself, I need sex, but sex is not. That means I can do without it. So it's important to understand, if you hold that line, you will set a standard, and your children and your wife will follow. I don't know how quickly, but they will follow. That's what the Bible promises us. So the Lord bless you. Thank you very much.
Wow.